And now we are live.
And now we are live.
Now we are live. All right, everybody. Okay. G'day, everybody. My name's Craig or Crafty from Craftworks Distillery, and I'm part of Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit, which is our little wee vlog, I suppose, and blog. And we talk to people in the industry. We talk to distillers. We talk to influencers, and we talk to people that make this industry what it is. So tonight we are graced with the presence of Nico Devlin from AWAS, Australian Whisky Appreciation Society. Nico, how are you, bud? Oh, you there?
Well, thanks, mate. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Coming to you live from the sunny shores of Sydney Harbour. It's a beautiful day here in Sydney. So thanks for having me on.
So it's one of the rare days that the sun is shining in Sydney. I think not. Yeah. No. And we've got my 2IC, the Todd, who's comfortably at home and not in the shed. That's where I am right now. G'day, Todd. How are you, bud?
Yeah, good. Nice and dry.
Nice. Yes. Nice and dry. And you're holding the fort tonight. You're the main man at the helm, Luke, who holds this whole ship together, is water damaged, would probably be the best way to describe it, I think.
Mm.
Yeah. House damage, water damage, and electric's out, and therefore is not here tonight. So we will plug on. We will plug on without Luke, and
we
do a better job. Yeah, might even do a better
Here's
job.
to Luke. Cheers, Luke. Make it, mate.
Here's Luke.
Yeah.
I hope you're watching, Luke, but I doubt it. I doubt it very much. All right, let's kick it off. So, first thing first, what are we all drinking?
I'm sure
Nico, what do you got in the glass, mate? Oh, there is a delay. I thought there was a delay.
Mate,
Nico, what do you?
The AWAS Highwayman, the peated release, peated double first fill bourbon, AWAS Highwayman that we released earlier in the year.
Very nice, very nice. And I'm sure Dan would be. Actually, Dan might be on tonight. Might be watching what's going on, and drinking the good stuff there.
I hope so.
What about yourself?
Well, I think you shipped to everyone that bought one of the most recent Highwaymans. They were shipped out today, I believe.
Yeah, that'll sold out on pre-sold, didn't it? It was a big sellout, that one, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was. Yeah, it all went pretty quick.
It's good to hear.
It was about 4 hours, and it was gone.
Wow. How many bottles was it?
Mate, Tyre, man, it's good stuff. There's not much. So yeah, you got to get on it while you can.
Yeah.
He does good work, Dan. It's good when one of your closest mates makes some of the best whiskey in the world. So yeah, it's always great to collaborate and do barrels with him. Very lucky I get to access some of his best stock. It's all exceptional, really. But we've been lucky to get some really, really nice casks out of him. Just leveraging my friendship and threatening him with me screaming heavy metal at him if he doesn't give me barrels of whiskey.
We were meant to have Dan on a couple of weeks ago, and he pulled his back, and he rang up. I think it was about 2 hours before, and goes, "Mate, I just can't do it. I'm flat on my back." And so we'll be getting Dan on in the future. He's keen to do it. So looking forward to having a chat about what he's doing.
Mate, that's unfortunately he's a big bloke. He was quite strong, but carrying around all those barrels of whiskey does get to you. Yeah, he's had a couple of back issues this year, unfortunately. Poor guy. So yeah, here's to Dan. Hope your back heals up, mate. Cheers. Have a dram, and yeah.
Cheers, Dan. What do you got, Todd? What are you drinking?
So I'm giving Frankie. So my favorite.
Frankie.
Getting a bit of Frankie into me.
Greatest distillery dog, hey?
Yeah, my favorite just at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a nice drop. It's not quite what I expected, but I'm still really enjoying it. So
it's the oldest whiskey that Blackgate's released, I think, from memory.
Mm.
It was a very special release, that one. Yes.
Yeah,
well, I
read up a little bit more.
Do that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've got several of those, and couldn't let any of those go by. As you may well know, I pretty much have one of just about every Blackgate bottling. All of their OBs, anyway. I've been able to keep up with some of their indie stuff that they've done, but yeah. And yeah, obviously some of the greatest people in the Australian whiskey industry and distilling industry, Brian and Janice, and yeah, poor Frankie.
And they've been,
time captures all of us, unfortunately.
Yes. No, it is very unfortunate, and it's a nice touch that they did that release. Blackgate have been going now. Don't quote me on this, but was at least 13, 14 years, isn't it, Nico, now?
I believe so. I think it's 13 years. It might be 14, yeah. It might be 14 years now, this year, but yeah. So we're getting, you know, in the Australian whiskey industry, they're definitely one of the older whiskey distilleries now. You know, I guess from us old hats, you Crafty, they've been around for a while. They seemed sort of new at one stage, but now it's, you know, well, AWAS is 8 years old now itself. So, yeah, the time creeps on, as I said. So, yeah, they're, you know, as we all know, they, you know, won silver for Dram of the Decade. So, the inaugural Australian Whiskey Awards. So, yeah, definitely, you know, doing some exceptional work. Yeah,
doing some exceptional work. Yeah, and pretty much whiskey gods in Australia for sure on that front.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, you go?
No, I was just agreeing. Yeah.
Sorry, there's a slight delay here. I might dial back on my thing shortly. But anyway, we'll come back to AWAS in a second because I'd like to kick it off and go right back to the start, but go back pre-AWAS. But before I do that, I'll tell you what I'm drinking. I'm drinking something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And this is not Australian. Normally I drink Australian, but I know I'm getting a bit low. And I bought the Starwood as well.
Yeah, we'll kick you around.
Well, I'll let you off the hook there. You just
I got one. I actually I tried that. I had that last time, and I've got the ginger beer cask as well. But yeah, most of my stuff's at home right now. But this one is a New Zealand whiskey, blend of whiskey, and this is where it's almost Australian. It's almost Australian, yeah. And this one
probably let you off a hook a little bit with a New Zealand one as well. Yeah, it's not too bad. So you know, stones throw away.
It's especially one with a little bit of history.
This one's got history for me because this Wilson's was a whiskey that derailed me from whiskey in my early 20s. I got so drunk and sore that for about 25 years, I would not drink whiskey at all. This was way before my days. Yeah, no, it was sore. So when they, the New Zealand whiskey company, when they released a 21-year-old Wilson's, I thought, I've got to get it because I've got to see when
It'll turn you off whiskey again.
Well, exactly. Exactly. I was,
for another 25 years.
Yeah, not good when you're a distiller to be turned off whiskey. But, I thought I'd take the punt, and I thought I'm either going to have a flood of memories and run away and throw up even before I'd had more than one sip, or I'm going to go, oh, okay, yep, no, that's okay. So luckily it fell into the category of, oh, it's okay. So yeah. So I'm still
thankfully, career-changing dream it could have been. If sell up Craftworks, mate. They call it, shut up shop. And
I reckon it could have been the absolute prize. So anyway, that's what I'm enjoying. So yeah,
I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it.
Yeah, I am. All right, let's kick it off, guys. So yeah, let's go back to the start, Niko. I mean, AWAS has been around for, as you said, I think you said 8 years, and a lot of people have been introduced to broadening their palette through AWAS. All right, and I want you to go back to before AWAS. So, what's your? I just told you my whiskey journey. What's your whiskey journey, and then what was the start of AWAS? How did that all come about?
Right. Well, I think I've had a love of whiskey, into my teens. I used to have pictures of, really through the whole rock star, wanting to be a rock star and a singer, and the whole whiskey, Axl Rose and bottles of JD and things like that. So that's where I've pretty much only really been a whiskey drinker my whole life, my whole drinking life, I should say. I've never really drunk much beer, or I had a little bit of a wine phase at one stage and that. But so I always had a passion for it, an interest in it, and just loved the taste of whiskey. And then ruminating, it would have been early 2000s with Brad O'Reilly, close friend, best mates. He's part of AWAS team, and we were discussing building a distillery at that point. It would have been maybe 2002 or something like that. I did look into it at that point. It just seemed far too difficult to set up a distillery in New South Wales at that point. There was some, what was going down in Tasmania, but that was in its infancy, not really doing much at that point. So I just thought, I'll just keep drinking whiskey. And I was primarily, JD bourbon drinker at the beginning. And then I got into single malts. And then that just started a whole new phase of appreciation of whiskey. And I just went down a massive rabbit hole, as many AWAS members have done since its inception. But yeah, it was probably, sort of mid to late 2000s that I got really, really into Scotch and single malts, and essentially drank a lot of whiskey to educate my palate. Just bought a lot of everything, and and then wanting to talk about whiskey and not really. I used to work nights. I was a technician in my previous life, so working from well into the evenings. I couldn't really go to any sort of whiskey events or anything. When I looked around for things, everything was on while I was working, so I couldn't really talk to anyone. Obviously, I had my own little friendship group, a handful of us that that I'd sort of roped into the single malts essentially. and then sort of, when was it? 2014. I created AWAS. It was actually a couple of weeks after my second daughter was born, and was at home drinking and thought, I'll create a group. And really, the inception was, I used to manage some basketball groups, or a basketball group, one of the largest basketball groups. And I posted up a little, me having a dram, and just said, hey, anyone want to talk about whiskey? Jump on AWAS. And there's about 50 people that joined out of the basketball group. And then it just sort of started from there. So, and then essentially the start of AWAS was me drinking a lot of whiskey. It was me posting my whiskeys. I mean, you can go back into the, if you're in the original group, you can go back and see me drinking a lot of whiskey initially. All those posts are still there. I like to consider AWAS like this massive whiskey archive. 8 years of thousands of people's dreams and thoughts and posts on whiskey. It's quite the database of whiskey information and knowledge that's accumulated over the years. So, I mean, that's really how AWAS started. It was a bit of a winding road, and then, less than a year later, I started laying down barrels and beginning the plans for the indie bottler that we see now, that's launched in 2020 with a Benriach as our first release, and then a series of Australian releases, Overeem, Blackgate, and then my own, or our own AWAS labelled brand Batch 1, which is probably like that all those discussions years ago with Brad, and we went halves in those barrels to start, and we laid them down, and that's how we got to AWAS Batch 1. And we're only because I've done so many other bottles. It's so many great distilleries to work with. We've only done 3 batches of AWAS release, but there'll be more coming in the near future.
Okay, so go back in time. So you're AWAS, you're small, you're a social media group, and you pick up the phone and you talk to Benriach. How do you get past the reception?
Well,
you can actually get to a point where you can secure product.
Well, look, the contact. Well, thankfully, I didn't have to speak to the receptionist. I'm sure the receptionist at Benriach is wonderful to talk to, though. Nothing against the reception people there, but Seamus, if you remember, he used to work for Brown Foreman.
Yes.
Whiskey mates, and he had some barrels coming in, and he reached out, and we selected that cask, and that's sort of how it happens. It's just, in the whiskey world, you're all hanging around sharing drams, and when you run the largest whiskey group in Australia, it's people like to work with you, knowing that there's a pretty large group of people there that are going to be interested. We're at 16,000 now, which is 16,500, I believe now, which is far and away the largest in Australia, and up there with some of the largest in the world of its type of single malt appreciation. So, quite an active group. It makes a lot of sense for distilleries and brands to work with us, knowing that we've got a great membership there. Yeah. And really the core of the Australian whiskey community, whiskey drinking community, is a member of AWAS. I'm sure there's loads of people out there that aren't on Facebook and various social medias, so they're not going to be a part of it. But generally, if you're an Australian who likes whiskey, you're in AWAS, and so I'll reach out. They'll reach out to me. It just depends, on what's going on. So it's all, it's case by case. But generally, you're having a dram and talking about whiskey, and say, hey, I like your whiskey. Let's bottle some for our members.
Mm.
So it's fair to say that you've got good contacts which you've built up through friendships and just the community in general and that. And so you've got ready access to various distillers, Australian distillers and international distillers, and that's you got a good pipeline. So the future looks promising, does it?
Yeah, it certainly does. Well, look, we're about to launch a whole range of products on the AWAS website. So there's going to be well over 100 new bottles available on the website in a few weeks. So the future is definitely bright. We're going to have a selection of rare and hard to find bottlings, plus your daily drinkers, all kinds of whiskey on there. We're not just an independent bottler anymore. So we're definitely broadening the horizons at AWAS and looking to, bring our members everything in the whiskey realm as we expand the shop and the website. And so it's very, very exciting. So the future is definitely bright. A lot of work there, but I'm super excited to see some of these bottlings come up. People probably haven't been able to grab these for a long time, and then while you're there, grabbing something that is more of an everyday dram, and not just one of those special one-off bottlings.
So this is your full-time AWAS now, Niko? This is your business, yeah? And you're building your business. Yeah.
Yes,
right.
and 100%, mate. Yeah. So there's actually a team, AWAS. It's not just me now. We've got other people involved. So there's a group of people that got behind us and myself and the people that believe in AWAS and what we're doing with the Australian whiskey community.
Yeah.
And then put a nod there and throwing that we're also the founders of the Australian Whisky Awards that show that how much we love and support the Australian whiskey brand as a whole. And really to throw my support and put all my hard work into building the brand as a whole, not just like my own personal business. Now I really want to uplift the Australian whiskey scene, and I see the awards as like a vehicle to build Australian whiskey and get a lot more Australians interested in drinking Australian whiskey. And that's sort of so there's really two sort of businesses there, but one is more somewhat altruistic or whatnot. They're just trying to lift everyone up, and where I just put on a great night for everyone, and everyone in the Australian whiskey community gets to vote on what their favourite whiskies are, Australian whiskies are, and it is largest whiskey democracy in Australia. It was quite big last year, and we're making plans for the next awards now.
It was we attended, and it was one hell of a reunion. What was that, Todd?
It was a great night.
It was a great night. Yeah. It was one hell of a reunion, and it was the atmosphere that night was just electric. It was you and your team did really well, mate, on that. It was everyone thoroughly enjoyed it.
Mm.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's a pure passion project. I just throw everything I can. It really absorbs sort of 3 months of my life to put that together, and and it was really quite risky both years throwing this event during COVID, where it really could have been shut down at any point in time. Like I was. Quite stressful each time, and had to deal with all various restrictions and everything like that. And still, people travelled and got behind it. It was such an amazing night to just see all the distillers and everyone and all the whiskey community as a whole, and from the punter, every facet to get involved and get behind it, and to all the sponsors, the people that have sponsored the awards both years, to yourself included. Thank you guys. You got behind us as well, and so yeah, it's just it's good to see everyone come together for that night and really celebrate Australian whiskey. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this year with no COVID, no restrictions. Hopefully, it should all get booked. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. Nothing else crazy happens in the world, and I can just roll ahead and plan a normal event without having to deal with all these externalities that could throw us under the bus, and I'm stuck in a very, very bad situation. But we're looking to make it bigger and better this year. I'm looking at maybe adding another category, but I'll get into that at a later date. We're just sort of looking at venues and that again now.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We may go back to Museum of Contemporary Arts again. We may even go back to the original Luna Park. That was quite good as well. But we're keeping the options open. We're going to have a look around and see what's going to best suit what we want to do. And we want to actually open up the ticketing, because there was a lot of people that we had to turn away a lot of people last year because of the limited tickets. There was only 120 tickets available. So, we want to bump up the numbers. We want to make sure everyone that wants to go can go. We'll try a couple of different things this time around. So, I'm super excited about it. It is pretty crazy event to organise, but I love it, mate. It's stressful, but I love it. So, and just the night, the payoff, it's once you're there and you're sitting down, it's all well worth all the work. And it's just having a great night. And this year we're hoping to not kick everyone out early and sort of have the after party there rather than having to push everyone off site like we did last year. But again, that was there was restrictions and things. So we're looking to extend the night, make it a little bit longer, because that vibe it's just amazing. And the fact that we sort of had to, it wasn't cutting it early by any means, but it certainly could have gone on for a lot longer than it did. So we're looking to do that next time around. And
running it without COVID restrictions. that's going to be a different world, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It's it's just going to be so much easier. It's just less stressful, and there's so many. As far as I know, all the restrictions are rolled back. As far as I know, so it should be just back to normal.
Well, they stay that way. So.
It seems like we're past all the COVID thing. It's just part of life now, and it is what it is, mate. It's like any other flu that we've got. Like influenza. No one's shutting down the world for influenza. It's just something we have to manage. We can't. Life must go on, mate. It's just what it is. So,
all right. So, change in tack then. There's when I started Craftworks, there was 60 odd distilleries. There's now something like, I think, don't quote me, but I think it's about 350, 400 distilleries in Australia. Hey, Fee. And of that, there's a percentage which are whiskey distilleries. And of that, there's a percentage which are not whiskey distilleries, but have been laying barrels. And so down the track, they will be releasing whiskey. What's your take on what the industry was like when you started AWAS, and I'm talking specifically whiskey now, and where the industry is now, and where do you think the industry's going? Do you think it's getting saturated, or do you think there's huge room for growth? What's your thoughts on all that?
Well, it just depends on how you view the whiskey market as whether it can be saturated. Now, if you say, oh, the whiskey market is, the whiskey drinker, we've hit peak whiskey drinkers in Australia, that's it. This is all the whiskey drinkers there are right now, then yeah, it's probably going to get saturated. But the job of everyone in the Australian whiskey industry, I believe, is to get more people drinking whiskey. Simple as that. Convert Australian whiskey specifically, what we're talking about here. But whiskey overall is good. But from, I believe there were some numbers thrown out that Australian drinkers, spirits drinkers, only drink 2% Australian spirits. That's the Australian spirits category as a whole, right? So there's plenty of room for growth there. Like, I don't think it's unreasonable to double that. Let's get 4% of spirits drinkers in Australia drinking Australian whiskey or Australian spirits. Like, it's not a crazy number to say, oh, look, we can double our market. So it's how you view it. If you want to be competitive and come from a point of negativity, or just looking, some sort of cutthroat type, this is all we got, like, it's too many, there's too much competition, or, it depends on how you look at things, really, at the end of the day.
Yep.
So if you have that sort of outlook as to Australian whiskey, then sure. But, I certainly don't see it that way. So I've put my whole life into Australian whiskey, as you can see with the two businesses, the awards and AWAS. My whole existence revolves that. My two daughters, essentially. So, I wouldn't have created the awards if I didn't see this huge amount of potential Australian whiskey drinkers out there that we can go and stare and say, hey, try an Australian whiskey. Look, you know what? I was a bourbon drinker for years, many, many years. I just drank JD, and that's the majority of what Australian whiskey drinkers would be drinking is bourbon. That's what the numbers say. A lot of JD gets sold, a lot of, Wild Turkey, all these brands, these bourbon brands.
Yeah.
And slowly, as the spirits Australian, the government gets behind the Australian spirits industry, we'll start to see more benefit. We've already seen a little bit. We'll start seeing more and more benefits and start to level the playing field. Yeah. And I agree, Jim. We can sort of level the playing field with the imports and get our prices down to something comparable to those, because a lot of what we do, the costs of Australian whiskey, all rolled up to in starting the distillery, all the taxes, we can get into all that. I'm sure it's everyone in the Australian community knows all about that. But over time, I think as the price comes down, it's going to get more competitive with imported brands. People start looking more and more at Australian whiskey as the distillers and people in the Australian whiskey industry educate more and more people, get more and more drinkers converted over. I think there isn't a bubble. There isn't, anything in Australian whiskey. I just see it as, let's all put in the work and make sure that there is enough pallets to go around to consume all this Australian whiskey that we have coming. I'm excited to see all these distilleries come on board. Look, no, not everyone's going to survive. That's just life. But not everyone in any industry is going to survive. That's just what it is. And it might not be anything to do with their whiskey producing. It might. People have all different personal issues and things that happen, and people try and fail, and it just is what it is. But it just goes to show the confidence in the industry that so many people are willing to put, their money where their mouth is and start a distillery. So that's the way I see it. It's not, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that don't agree, but that's fine. That's life. So that's the way I see it. I think we all need to do the work and get as many people drinking Australian whiskey as possible.
Yeah.
That's what the awards are for. That's what AWAS is for. That's what it's about. And you've seen the growth in AWAS. It started out very small. It's 8 years. We're 16,500 strong. That's a lot of whiskey drinkers. It's like, it's like 90% Australians in AWAS. So, or even possibly higher. I haven't had a look at the stats recently, but yeah, it's a lot of Australians that are interested in single malt drinking, and then, let's get those people drinking Australian whiskey, and let's get even more and more people that are out there that don't know they're Australian whiskey fans yet.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Australian whiskey, I'm not talking other spirits, I'm just talking whiskey, but I think it's fair to say it's punching well above its weight on the international scene. You just got to look at the accolades and the feedback and the awards and that internationally. So Australians are making high quality whiskey and very unique whiskies as well. It's not, this is just my own opinion, it's not just replicating a Scotch or replicating a Japanese or whatever. It's making Australian whiskey, and that's quite exciting, isn't it? And that's what stimulates people into the category. I think they get to try something different and uniquely Australian.
Completely agree, mate. That's it. We this current incarnation of the Australian whiskey industry, the distilling history in Australia goes back, over 150 years or so for whiskey. But, essentially industry did shut down through the 80s and that, but this current incarnation of the Bill Lark sort of started the micro distilling or small scale distilling in Australia again. We're starting to really see our own identity as a whiskey producing nation, get our own characteristics. We're big, bold flavors. We're not Scotch is a little bit, lighter. They have some big, bold flavors. And look, every country has, different kinds of whiskies and that, but we are really developing our own identity. And it'll grow and change as well as different processes and larger scale distilleries start to come on board and produce over longer and longer periods of time. But, and again, that's why I created the awards. I felt like it was time that there was enough Australian whiskey to support an awards show, that there was so many whiskies out there that we really needed our own set of awards. It's great to see us gain international interest, but most of our whiskey doesn't make it offshore. Australians drink the majority of Australian whiskey, so there's not a great international market for Australian whiskey. We don't have the volume quite yet. We're starting to see people like Starwood and a few others go overseas and really trailblaze the international market. But our production is still quite low, and most of it isn't making it offshore. So I'm quite a bit of a patriot, and I have my own form of patriotism. And I wanted Australians to decide what the best Australian whiskies are. It's up to us. We drink the most of it. Those international awards are only getting a small selection of what Australian whiskies are. So, we go to the people that drink the most Australian whiskies and say, what do you think is the best? And that's the Australian Whiskey Awards. So it is the Australian consumer. And obviously, we have a judges panel as well that weighs in. But it's predominantly, the Australian consumer decides what the best of the best is. And, and look, we had over 71,000 votes in last year's awards. So,
wow.
I'm not worried about there not being a lot of interest in Australian whiskey. You know, I get to see things that other people don't see in regards to Australian whiskey community. Being behind AWAS and behind the awards, you know, I get access to a lot of information that really no one else has. So yeah, I'm excited about Australian whiskey and the Australian whiskey community, and you know, I love to see all of it. I love seeing everyone winning the international awards because we're going up against all these well-established brands and distilleries all around the world, and you know, I won't say beating them at their own game, but you know, standing shoulder to shoulder with some of the best whiskies in the world and best distilleries in the world, and walking home with accolades is always fantastic to see. And you know, I see it again. It's all positive. It's all positive steps to building the Australian whiskey category, and us hopefully being in a position in the coming decades to take our rightful position on the world stage and take back becoming a large whiskey exporter. I'd like to see that, because we did have a strong whiskey export industry, and we have a strong history there that not a lot of people know about. But I'd like to see that happen again, and if we could do it 100 years ago, we can certainly do it now. There's a lot more people, a lot more whiskey drinkers now. You know, so it's we all need to get in and do the work and work together, and you know, let's build a massive thirst for Australian whiskey where we struggle to supply that thirst, and then we're not worried about how many distilleries you have. We want more, and you know, it's all encouragement. You know, it's like Bill Lark said, you know, that rising tide raises all boats. So you know, that's his. Well, I've sort of followed his lead and the way he views the industry, and and that's right.
Yeah, as well said, Niko. Well said. It's fair to say that you know, there's a number of larger whiskey distilleries, and you mentioned Starwood as an example, and they're gearing up for export and focusing on building those channels, right? Which is my own belief in that is good for the smaller guys as well, because it's broadening that education and broadening people's horizons, and at a price point that Australian whiskey is attractive, and they're tasting it and going, well, I like that. What else is out there? And so this is where it works for the smaller guys, put ourselves in that category, that, you know, people will push out very small, micro small. And so, yeah, the growth opportunities are there. And as you said, but everyone's got to do their part. You know, it's the education, it's the accessibility, it's the getting the message out there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just you want those larger distilleries to do really well, and you want them to export. You know, we want to build that palate. We want to get a massive thirst for Australian whiskey worldwide. We want, you know, to see people from around the world. Now, I know it's hard to sort of export. It's, you know, we're still figuring out a lot of pathways to get, you know, say like stuff into America, which is very difficult. You know, it's which is a massive market there, an opportunity there. I think once the pathways are there again, and yeah, and just really everywhere around the world that likes drinking whiskey, you know, as a whiskey drinking community, we should be having our drams poured by those whiskey drinkers and enjoyed. So, and then look, if there's a lot of whiskey going offshore, it's, you know, creates a little bit of a gap in the market here too. You know what I mean? So we can fill some more drams here, and again, still build more consumers here and build them overseas at the same time. that seems to be the pathway. Look, we've got amazing whiskey here in Australia.
Oh, that's always a challenge, isn't it?
We lost Luke, and then we have had.
Let's hope he'll come back soon.
And maybe not.
Oh no, he might be rebooting the system, run out of battery or something. So just give him a bit of time.
Yeah.
Well, it's been quite a few good points he's raised. Here he comes.
Here he comes. Yeah. We
Didn't you
lost
like
Luke.
that?
We lost you.
I dropped out, did I?
Yeah, you did. It's all good.
Yeah, it just dropped out. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, must have been my internet dropped out or something.
Yeah, no,
Just
you're back.
Connected straight away. So here we go.
That's all good. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, amazing whiskey in Australia, I believe was the last thing I said. So
yes, it was. Yeah. And it's been an evolution. It's fascinating to me as a distiller, and looking at what's has happened with gin in Australia, and how there's just such a diversity of gin, flavor profiles, and unique pairings of botanicals and things like that. And you've got people hitting the deck, basically running. Right, they're releasing products, and they're fantastic products. And I think the same can be said for whiskey. There's whiskey distilleries, and they're going different ways. They're trying different things, and there are some which are going, no, I really just want to make a Scotch style whiskey, and there's others which are going, no, I want to make the opposite of a Scotch whiskey. I want to take the best of what I know of Scottish approach and American approach and Australian approach, and that. It's ballsy. I think you've got to say Australian distillers are putting it out there. They're doing the Australian thing, having a go, and it's boots and all. It seems to be, in my opinion, it seems to be pretty fundamental to Australian distillers. What's your thoughts?
One of our advantages, though, is that we don't have as many rules as well. So,
yeah, that's a good point.
We have a lot more flexibility to produce our whiskies.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Our legislation around our legislation around what qualifies as whiskey has probably allowed a lot of innovation in comparison to the rest of the world. So, that's one good thing. Look, it's probably led to some bad products out there that probably weren't too good, but it's also led to a lot of amazing products. And, that's experimentation. Not all experiments work. I got an experiment that didn't work either, I'm sitting there wondering what to do with, but it's, it just is what it is. You play around with some things and see how they go. And we imprint our identity as Australians on whatever we do. You look at us as a sporting nation. Again, we punch above our weight. We do really well. We go, above and beyond like what our population should really be doing on the world stage. So it was only natural that that's how we go about distilling. And we're seeing it. The proof is in the pudding. You know what I mean? So the dreams are exceptional. I was primarily a bourbon drinker and then a Scotch drinker. And now I'm primarily an Australian whiskey drinker. Yeah, I do still drink dreams from around the world, and I select casks from everywhere around the world. But the majority of everything I drink is Australian whiskey. And that is the core of my passion, is for the Australian industry and Australian whiskey distilling and distilleries. So it's great to see. I love it. It's we're only getting bigger and better, and I'm super excited about the future.
I'm excited by it as well. I think one of the things that's quite exciting too is your whiskey consumer, your punter, and I'm a punter, has quite a thirst for knowledge, and you look at the level of questions that are getting asked nowadays to say a few years ago, and people are cutting through marketing and going, is that really true? Or even questioning things and wanting to learn more things, which can only be good for the industry, I believe. What do you think of that?
Yeah, definitely. Just as I pour another Highwayman. Look, people want to know what's in their glass. Look, some they want to know, where the grain origin and the mash bill. People want to know the full story behind the dram. It adds to the experience at the end of the day. Like it's when you have a passion for something, you want to know more about it. So, and you're spending your money on something, you want to know what it is. And so you're not always going to get all the details on everything. And look, with our AWAS brand, we tend to not say where any of the distilleries are from, but that's just the way we've decided to go about that, just because some like it and some don't. So we just decided to go, we'll just go with state of origin only, but you still get to find out, what's style of barrel and the style of spirit that's going in there. Yeah. But even that, a lot of Scotch bottlers and other bottlers and indie bottlers around the world don't put much of anything on there, and it still gains a lot of interest, and people want to buy it. So sometimes the mystery is good too. You know what I mean? A little bit of mystery can add to it, and you can see if you can pick where this distillery came from. So, but yeah, look. In regards to the curiosity around whiskey, you see that in AWAS. You see all the questions and the interactions through both our groups. And it's clearly just a lot of interest in whiskey in Australia. We've got some of the most knowledgeable people in Australia too. It's quite good.
Mm.
And running AWAS, let's talk about that. So you said how many? 16,500, I think you said, from memory, members. Was that right? 16,500? Oh, can you hear me?
So, Nico, are you hearing us? Or?
I think it is.
Like that,
yep. Okay. There's a delay there. Yeah. So
around 16,500, and then we also have another group which is around 7,000 members. So you want to get into running it. Like, why do we have two groups? Yep.
Yeah, sorry, there is a pause there. Yeah, it's a glitch on the system. Yeah, so yes, if you want to run through why there's two groups, that would be interesting. But also just the mechanics of running the groups. I mean, that must take a lot of time and energy and challenging, I would say. So yeah, if you want to touch on both points, why there's two groups and just the mechanics of running the groups.
So this is where we need our Lukey.
No, I'm just shitting with you, Todd. You thought I froze as well.
Yeah, well, I will say the mechanics has gotten a lot easier recently due to a lot of things that Facebook has put in. A lot of stuff is automated now that I used to have to do physically, manually. Used to have to manage certain things.
Yeah.
Youngie from the cooperage.
And
It's sadly not.
yeah, so I'll just waffle on, and hopefully everyone's getting it. I'm receiving you guys fine, so I'm not sure, but yeah, it seems to be a delay. Yeah, so over the during the inception, it was quite easy to manage. It was there wasn't too many people in there. The first sort of 1,000 or 2,000, it was quite manageable. But then as things exploded, it did get harder and harder. G'day, Youngie. Yep, g'day, mate. It did get harder and harder as it blew up, I must say, and it became quite intensive. And we do have an admin group there that's helped out quite a bit. And, shout out to the AWAS admin team that's helped me manage the group. They've all volunteered over the years to help manage and, delete and block things and, stuff that could potentially get us shut down. And eventually that's what happened. We did get shut down. The regional group got shut down for several months. I think it was a bit over 6 months or so.
Wow.
So that's why we created the second group, which is the AWAS Public Forum. And I proceeded to spend the next 6 months trying to get the original group back, and got myself a contact at Facebook and finally sorted that out. And
Bam. Looks that way. So we're actually coming up to an hour. So maybe once we get to a point.
Shitting with you, Todd.
Yeah, I know you're shooting with me.
Yeah, he'll be back in a second.
Yeah, but just we are getting close to an hour as well, so keep that in
So
mind.
we'll wrap up shortly. Yep. Yeah, no, it'd be interesting just to finish off that.
I know, it was a good conversation.
Here we are. You back, Nico?
here we go.
Yeah.
I've just switched to a different internet. So
All right.
hopefully that works. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure where it dropped off. Something about, I believe, spent...
Facebook, you had a contact in Facebook, and it went from there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got myself a contact at Facebook and finally got the original group back, which we renamed AWAS the Original. And so, now we were the largest group in Australia. We got erased and then created a new group, and that quickly became the largest group in Australia again. And our second group is still bigger than every other whiskey group in Australia. By a few
I
thousand.
think a lot of the groups sort of got kicked off about the same time, didn't they? So you're sort of pretty much on the same playing field.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of groups got shut down, and it's happened in waves. It started a few years ago. I think it was about 2018. Whiskey groups, alcohol groups around the world started to get shut down by Facebook, where I just saw it happening, around the world. And so thankfully I do have that contact at Facebook now, and don't think we'll be getting shut down again, and if we do, we can get it straight back up. I've got a solid contact there now, so thankfully through our AWAS team, Scott and Brett over at Right Hook. Well, Scott's at Right Hook Digital, our AWAS partners, and so we've so now we've got the two largest whiskey groups in Australia. And now managing the two groups is probably easier than it was 3 years ago to manage the one group, because now a lot of it's automated by Facebook. A lot of stuff, questions are asked, the way you approve people. I used to have to look at everyone's profile to see if they were legitimate to let them in.
Right.
It was just time consuming. Now you get like a little preview of everyone, and you get to sort of see what looks like a bot and doesn't, and things like that. So there's just a lot of stuff there that wasn't there, but also, so that also leads to some things getting deleted that are out of my control. Posts get deleted, and I can't do anything about it. People get booted, and I can't do anything about it for certain things. I had someone's post get deleted because he said my dog, like saying my mate, my dog. And it was like, oh, this is abuse. It's just like, okay. So there's a lot, the algorithms don't always get the context, but and there's nothing I can do about that sort of stuff. And people complain. I'm like, sorry, that's it. You're not there. Sorry, mate. I can't do it. You got zucked. But hey, I got the whole thing zucked, and thankfully got it back again. But so managing was quite difficult. I'd say it really peaked in the start of 2020 of COVID, where at one stage we had something like 70,000 interactions in 28 days. It was insane. It was just everyone was just at home drinking whiskey. It was great. But it's great to see. But for me and, for the AWAS team, we had to manage all that, and we didn't have all these automated things at that stage. But thankfully it sort of died down a bit. It's a bit easier to manage. There's still things you have to stay on top of, and it is a large community, and it's more managing the people, but realistically these days everyone's pretty chill. It's, we've had the roller coasters of viral things happen and things blow up, and a lot of people do stupid things, and I've had to build out bunches of people at times, just want to be idiots and just go, all right, whatever, But I've said silly stuff in other groups and got booted. It is what it is. People have their little social media spats at times, and that's just life on the socials, mate. People like to vent sometimes, and it is what it is. But I think it's a lot better now, and I can sort of focus more on the nuts and bolts of the AWAS business side more so than the group. And it's everyone's pretty good. It sort of, manages itself. I have a handful of members that are also sort of almost admins that sort of, point things out and send me messages and things if they see anything that could get the groups shut down and that. And I'd like to thank all those people that get involved in the AWAS community and work together to keep it alive. Yeah, I created it, but it's all our community as the whiskey industry as a whole in Australia. I like to see it as just like this big communal space, the group, and there is a business aspect to it for us as an indie bottler and now a retailer, but predominantly I keep it pretty light in there from from our side of things, as in telling people about what we're doing with the website, with the AWAS shop, and then it's just mainly the conversations of people enjoying whiskey, So we keep all our stuff pin it to the top of the announcements, and the rest of the group is just conversation. So it's good. It's great. I love seeing all the interactions.
What I enjoy is when you see someone new come on and they announce themselves that I'm new to it all. I don't know anything really, but I've just bought this. What does everyone think? And you go, there's someone just starting their journey.
Yeah.
and they're right on the edge of the rabbit hole, and holy hell, they're going down.
That's it. Yeah. Again, yeah, it's one of my favorite posts as well. You know, you get to see that, and we've seen it so many times over the years. That first post in the group, and I remember my first sort of, you know, posts in there. It's all very tentative, and you know, it's like, yeah, mate, you're about to fall down a massive rabbit hole of whiskey appreciation, and and that's it. The more of those, the better. And it's great to see the responses from everyone. You know.
Generally, usually they're positive. So that's the industry in general, really.
Mate, social media. No, it's never going to be 100% positive, but I like to think AWAS is pretty positive. You know what I mean? In general, so yeah, there's always going to be one or two people that is probably just cracking a joke, and it might get taken the wrong way and things like that. Yeah. But you know, that's just the social media game. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what area of social media. I'd like, you know, there's a lot of vitriol and negativity out there, and generally AWAS is pretty safe. You just get to come there and talk about whiskey and enjoy your drams.
Yeah, awesome. That's good. All right, Niko, I think unless there's some questions from the audience, I think we're just over the hour and a bit mark. So just the final question, what's your go-to drams in your cabinet right now? What's your top three that you're sitting on right now?
Well, I'm going to be completely and utterly biased and say our past couple of AWAS releases, which is what I've been drinking. You're up in Alice Springs, yeah, David and
You're a long way from home.
They're a long way from home, out of Tassie. Cheers.
Yeah.
Look, right now I'm enjoying this Highwayman double first fill bourbon cask that we bottled. That's honestly, I am biased, and we do. I tend to pick whiskies that I love. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always picking. It's got to go through the AWAS tasting panel to qualify as something we bottle. So I'm, you know, so it's the bourbon first fill Highwayman, and then the last one was the Flurio. That was exceptional. Unpeated, real sticky date pudding dram. That one, delicious. And I have to say the Mezcal Kilchoman for a Scotch there, Isla single cask.
Wow.
That's probably one of the most unique drams. Well, it is the most unique dram I've tasted, and quite a few people have tasted. It's just an insane Isla single cask, Mezcal finish, Kilchoman. I'm so glad I got to bottle that and bring that into the country for our AWAS members. Yeah, so those are my top three drams at the moment. Yes, they're all my bottlings, but I bottle them for a reason. And I bottle them my favourite whiskies. You know what I mean? I taste a lot of whiskies. I get a lot of options to bottle. You know, access to a lot of casks, and it's tough narrowing it down. Really, it's tough passing over a lot of them. I can't bottle everything. You know what I mean? So we're really only picking the best of the best, or something that's really unique, or got like a certain profile that I'm just like, okay, yeah, that's an amazing whiskey and something super special. If I want people to know, if it's got the AWAS sticker on it or the AWAS name on it, it's gone through the gauntlet, and not everyone made it through, but this one did, and it's going to be super special. So I don't mind saying that this might be the best bourbon cask peated Australian whiskey ever. Possibly, I don't know. We'll see what the awards say. Maybe we've kept our AWAS drams out of the awards, so I've removed the nominations.
That's probably a good move.
Everyone nominations just to try and keep it all above board. But maybe this year I might let this one go up and see how well it does, because it is I don't know. We'll have to. I might put it to a vote in the group and see if they'll see how people think about letting that go through.
Quality speaks. Quality speaks. Absolutely. All right.
Cheers to that.
Niko, thank you, my friend. Appreciate your time. And it's nice to see the sun still shining in Sydney, which is
It's always shining when I'm around, mate. That's how I roll. Thank you guys for having me on. Thanks to everyone that joined in. Thank you everyone in AWAS, everyone who watches this later on, and just everyone in the Australian whiskey community for all the support over the years. I couldn't do this without all that support. I'm truly grateful and blessed to be doing what I'm doing, and I'm looking forward to sharing dreams with everyone over the coming months and years of Australian whiskey appreciation as we all get back out and get back to our normal lives.
And on that note, there's nothing more to say. Niko nailed it. So, cheers all.
Well spoken. Cheers, everyone. Have a good
We will
night.
see you around. We will see you around. Aussie Craft Distillers shooting the shit. AWAS tonight. Cheers, Niko.
Cheers, mate. Cheers, Todd. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And Todd is